On today's bonus episode, we're diving into hitting your money goals while having fun. Welcome to Simplify and Enjoy, the podcast and community focused on helping families have less stress and more options through minimalism and financial independence. I'm your host, Elle Martinez. This podcast is sponsored by Coastal Credit Union. Coastal's mission is to help you live a better life by offering you a better way to bank. Find out how at bankbetter.org. As we're winding down and wrapping things up for 2021, one of the best things we can do is set things up to make it easier to achieve our family and financial goals. For us, it's doing a review of the numbers to see what's worked and what hasn't. We're also spending time now deciding on what we really want to do in 2022, while of course keeping some flexibility in that plan because COVID is still a thing. A big challenge many families face is creating and sticking with a plan that allows them to pay down their debts, save for priorities, and invest more. We have so many things going on, it's very easy to break the plan and just quit. I want you to stick with it and achieve your goals. So today's episode has something I think that will be a huge help. I had the pleasure of chatting with Joe Saul-Sehy of the award-winning Stacking Benjamins podcast and the fantastic personal finance author Emily Guy Birken about their new book, Stacked, Your Serious Guide to Modern Money Management, which is a mouthful of a title. But I gotta tell you, the thing that jumped out at me about that book was how much fun it was to read. Joe and Emily do an incredible job, not just explaining key financial points, but they weave it in with game references, inside jokes, comics, and more. It's all about making personal finance accessible and, well, not boring. If you're looking for a reset, reboot, whatever you want to call it for next year with your finances, I think you'll enjoy our conversation. I'm really excited to talk to you guys, especially after the craziest couple years that we've had. I can't believe I'm saying this, but your book had me cracking up. Out of all this like craziness, who thought a financial book would be
Wait a minute.
One of those ways to relax?
Wait a minute. So let's define that. Are you saying that you can't believe we cracked you up? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I know Emily. I've known Emily for years.
There it is.
And
I knew it.
I knew you, but putting you guys together, that is the magic.
It's like you got a chocolate on my peanut butter. You got peanut butter on my chocolate. Wow, this is great together.
It just works. But seriously, that's one of the first things that jumped out at me with Stacked was how different it was in a very good way from other personal finance books, because there was so much humor in it. There were so many jokes, and call me a nerd, but I had to kind of slow down as I was reading it because I was like, I know this is a reference to something, because clearly you guys were having a lot of fun with this book. First off, how did you guys come up with this idea to write the book in this style?
So the book was my idea, and thank you for all of that. And we certainly did have a lot of fun writing it. And I heard for a long time that writing a book was a painful and difficult. And while I won't say that it was easy, I do think it was a blast. It was definitely, I had fun from beginning to end doing this project. But I had written a book, Elle, over a 10-year period. And it was way too serious, and it was incredibly boring. And it was not, the kind of messaging that we have on our Stacking Benjamins podcast, which is that I think a teaching method of, like you have here, that light is a great introduction to these deep conversations we all need to have. I had read that 150 million people in the United States on a recent survey said they've cried about their money. And there's just too much heavy. We take it way too seriously. We're way too private about it. So I think the best way to get people involved is to lighten it up a little bit. But I needed something, and I didn't know what it was. So Cheryl, my spouse, and I, pre-COVID, we were out in Portland, Oregon at this wonderful bookstore called Powell's. Have you been to Powell's?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's it's a block long, and it's this bookstore that's so eclectic, not just in the fact that they've got new books and used books, but they also I feel like every time the store next to them closed down, they just bought the property, broke down the wall because the floors don't line up. The second floors don't go to the second floor. Like sometimes the third floor on one area is the second floor. It is a quirky, weird bookstore where you just get lost. And so I've been there 3 times, I think. And each time I just go get lost. So I find myself in the kids section, and I found
Not
the
surprised.
Hardy. I'm right here.
I was going to be like, why were you in the kids section?
Yes. Just wandering around. I find my way to the kids section. I see the Hardy Boys Detective Manual. And I don't know if you read Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys.
Yep, I
and
remember those.
the detective manual was a little different. It was a manual about how to be a detective, and it was written with the help of a real live retired FBI agent. Like I tell you that right at the start. So my brother and I had this thing when I was in 4th grade, and we dog-eared it. We carried it everywhere. I mean, my dad would go to work on a rainy day or a wet day, and we would be out in the mud looking at the tire tracks, making sure we got that for my dad. Or my mom would touch a door handle, and we're over there with the tape, and we're taking her fingerprint off the door handle. So we learned how to crack codes. I mean, it was awesome, and we carried it everywhere. And I had this germ of this idea, which was this campy idea of, if we could make a book like that, where it appealed to adults and they carried it around and dog-eared it the way I carried around that book, that would be awesome. What was cool was when Cheryl and I flew home, my mom has a key to our house. And then I got home and my mom had finally, I'm 50 years old at the time, 50. And my mom's finally given me the crap from the attic that she's held on to for all these years. Right. So
she wanted to make sure that it would stick, that you were out on your own before she was
finally. Yes, this marriage of over, 20 some years at that point, probably going to stay together.
It's going to stick. I can afford to send him a stuff.
Yeah, very, very, probably not transient anymore. So, and in that box was like the 6th place in the father-son bowling tournament, and with the arm was broke off, the one of the 2 figures that was in there. Little Joey in Little League, like 3 different years, and of course my hair's all messed up like it needs to be. But the big thing was there was the Cub Scout Wolf Guide. What's cool, and we talk about this, Emily and I talk about this in the book, about how important gamification is for people that don't get it, because they think it's sludge and it's tough. And if you gamify it, it's going to be so much more fun. The Cub Scouts, I realized flipping through this manual, had gamification down way before the apps did, way before any of this stuff. What they did with their chapters was, every chapter was an achievement. And to get the achievement, they told you exactly what you were going to need at the top. They told you succinctly how to do it. And then at the bottom, they had a checkbox of all the things that you needed to do. And there's a place for your mom to sign that you did it. And I thought, here it is. So when Emily and I went on the book tour, where we were talking to different publishers about this project, it was so weird. At the end of each one of these, I'm going, so what I want to do is I'd like to do the Hardy Boys Detective Manual meets the Cub Scout Wolf Guide. But
so how many shades of red was Emily doing?
I was all in. So like at that point,
that's good to know. That's good to know. You got a partner.
I had bought in. I was like, this is a great idea. I think it's going to play.
Yeah. So that was fun. And then the last part, of course, we have interviews from a lot of people in personal finance in the book. And that came from, I was on vacation, another vacation in a bookstore, and I saw Howard Stern's book, and Howard Stern's book was totally just interviews he'd done with these people. I thought, wow, we've done so many cool interviews with so many cool people. What if I found different people that talked about different topics and got their permission to include them? So we put them at the end of the chapters.
Yeah, I loved it. And you had a different variety. Some of the guests I were familiar with, the Budgetnista. I think you had someone in the 5 space about gamification and talking about that, Kristen.
Yeah, Kristen Wong.
Yeah. And so I love the variety with that. I found that so much fun to kind of just read it. I'm thinking of your podcast as I'm reading that section. But it's funny that you mentioned the Hardy Boys, a kid's book, a children's book, getting you into this idea with Stack, because I was just talking with a former librarian a couple of weeks ago. And I asked her, like, how did you get into personal finance? I was kind of interested in her story. Don't laugh. It was the same thing. Here is someone who's a professional, educated, and it was a personal finance intended for children that she's like,
it was for investing, which kudos to anyone who's writing an investing book for kids. But it took that intimidation. It was clear. It made it fun. And for her, that was the click that started her down that path. I think that's not recognized is, yes, we need to have more financial education and literacy, but how it's presented makes a huge difference, whether it's going to stick and whether you're going to keep at it. With that in mind, that was the other thing that immediately jumped out at me when I was looking at Stack was I was looking at it because you guys have a lot of visuals in there. I mean, besides, I saw the portfolios, the chart that you want to see about why you want to diversify. That was great. But you guys have cartoons in there. You have conversations. First, who came up with that? What was that conversation like? And how did that even fit in, like with the publisher letting them know, okay, here's where we're going to put a cartoon bubble with a conversation about a son and a mom.
I actually think that was the first cartoon we realized we wanted to make sure we included, because we were talking about, Joe made the comment, "You're changing budget." And I said, that sounds like those like old movies from like the 50s and 60s that are in black and white, like "You're changing body and you." Like how they're so cringeworthy. And then I was like, thinking about that, I was like, I would love to have like, a boy with his voice like cracking, like, "Mom, I couldn't afford something at the store." And Mom like, "Oh, it's okay, honey. It's just you're changing budget." In the same way that like, "It's okay, honey. That's a normal part of growing up."
Yes.
And so I think that was the first time where we were like, we want to have a cartoon, and we started kind of looking for other places where it would fit for us to have cartoons. There were other aspects. So we have like what look like sticky notes, like Post-it notes, which are like comments between me and Joe. That came about because I actually put a comment. We were writing on Google Documents. I put a comment in Google Docs that was, "Joe, there's a joke in here somewhere. Can you help me find it?" And he's like, "Oh, we got to put that in." And I was like, "Oh, what if we had like conversations back and forth, like sticky notes?"
Yeah, somehow like the best joke is the joke that your reader comes up with, right? That you don't even come up with the joke because it's not nearly as funny as the fact that you've talked around this joke, and everybody reading it knows you've talked around it. So, what is the joke? So I don't think we ever did even tell that joke. But then Emily was going online just doing these great cartoons. And I knew she was doing a class where she was working on cartoons. I think that one I actually brought up, said, "We got to totally make us cartoons." And Emily's like, "Really? I get to be a cartoonist in the book?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, we got to do that." So then she's like, "What animal do you want to be?" We have this strange conversation about how I'm a total fox.
It started with, he was just like, "Oh, okay, I'll be a hawk." I'm like, "Yeah, I can't do a hawk with headphones in front of a microphone. I can't draw that." It's like, "What about a narwhal?" I'm like, "I can't do that one either." Like, can you please pick something that is drawable in this scenario? Like, I need more to work with. So he ended up being a fox, which I think, because he suggested it because he saw me. I had posted an image of a fox on the radio, like talk on the radio. Yeah. And that was when he suggested it. He's like, "Okay, you could draw this for us. And like, you could use that fox one." And so I suspect he's like, "A hawk, a narwhal," because he was like, "I want to be a fox." She's just like, "Oh, Joe, finally, fine."
It's like my favorite advice is in a bathroom book in my mom's house. And she has great pieces of advice from 8-year-olds. If you want a kitty, start out by asking for a horse. There we go. It
sounds like you guys had a blast writing this. And something I wanted to chat with you a little bit more was the fact that you made it fun. And you mentioned this, gamifying finances. How many games did you include in the book? I was trying to like keep track. I saw the Monopoly. I saw the Tetris. Yes, near and dear to my heart was the Oregon Trail. Like, how did the game come first, or how were you incorporating the game with these financial concepts? Because I have to be honest, I never saw Oregon Trail as a great way to explain budgeting.
Well, it actually doesn't even explain budgeting as much as tracking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Oregon Trail,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was a great way to talk about how, these people learned and they taught people who were coming down the trail after them by writing it down, but it didn't solve the problem of the wagon going forward. It's to help out later. You learn that maybe, Timmy shouldn't have drank out of that mud puddle, or maybe we shouldn't have trusted that traveling salesman, or whatever it might, all the weird stuff that would happen in the game Oregon Trail. So the games, though, I think the games are just a natural outlet, weren't they, Emily? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it just kind of came about because, Joe is a game aficionado. When early on previous homes, because Joe was living many places, but his background was just the wall of board games. There'd be times where I'd be like, I haven't played that one. Like that looks fun. Yeah. I think some of that is just, that's one of the ways that Joe thinks about things. And then I have a similar mindset. I'm not as I don't have quite the appreciation for games that Joe does, but I do have this tendency of looking for patterns. And so I have for a long time thought of money as being like Tetris, and that budgeting is something where you're trying to allocate a scarce resource. And so like Tetris, you're trying to allocate space and trying to make everything fit. And with your budget, you're trying to make everything fit. And just like Tetris, the bills never stop coming. The money decisions never stop coming. There is no end to Tetris. The other thing that really struck me as being very similar in that you are trying to do this thing that is never ending. And if you screw up early on, that can make things hard for a while, but you can always get back to doing things more easily once you have cleared up. If you put a T-shaped one down, point side down by accident and have to work around it for a while, that's like taking a loan that you shouldn't have and have to work around it for a while until you're able to take care of things. So it's one of the reasons why I like talking about that, is so many people think of money as this deadly serious thing. And I'm not going to say it's not, because it is. It's a serious issue. It is life or death. But if you start looking at it in a more gamified way, rather than associating the money with the deadly serious aspect of it, it frees your mind to think a little bit more creatively. It allows you to recognize that hey, I can make decisions under pressure. I can do this, I can do that. And so if I'm able to handle those falling blocks as they go faster and faster and faster, I can figure out how to handle my bills. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to include that. That was just kind of a pattern that I have noticed throughout my life.
And I think that's important, because the budget, Elle, as you know, if you really want to simplify your life, get an easy to understand budget. And I think a lot of people, when I would talk to people about budgeting, they go, well, I got Mint. And they wouldn't say that I use Mint, first of all, but then they also—
That is a good distinction to make.
Right? I have it on my phone. I'm done with that. Right. So I own a toothbrush. I've never used it. Is not the same thing. I think that this idea of creating a budget so that it's freeing for the rest of your financial life instead of restricting is a big basic thing that a lot of people mess up and they do wrong. I don't think, especially couples, I don't think couples talk about their money enough. I think it's less about the spreadsheet. And as those blocks are falling faster and faster in our life, which, you've got kids and a spouse, the blocks are falling pretty damn fast. You really need a good budget that kind of tells you where the blocks are coming next so that you're able to plan for those.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I really enjoyed about the book, is that you took real examples, you combined it with games that people enjoy, and you explain things. I want to talk about two examples, one from each of you. And if you guys can go a little bit more into this, because I'm a parent. My husband and I next month will be married 15 years, and we completely get sometimes you're not always in sync, and sometimes you got to bribe those kids to help you out with those financial goals. So I saw, Joe, that you made a game years ago with your twins about, saving money with the electric bill and maybe a little bribe of pizza, and Emily Lamons kind of getting, your husband on board with talking about finances and working together. I don't care who goes first. I would love to get the stories behind those and how it worked.
So, Joe, are you saying you want me to go first?
Absolutely.
So with my husband, we came at money from very different viewpoints. It just, we did not have much connection other than the fact that we were both generally pretty frugal. And so when we were first married, before we had kids, and it was unrelated, it was not intentional for this reason, we were on a long car trip. And somehow one of the two of us started saying, let's list the top 10 vacation destinations you want to go. Just go. And it was delightful talking about this. And so his number one destination was the Le Mans 24-hour auto race in France. So, back in my salad days, I was a French major and I lived in Paris for 6 months. And so I was just like, I am down with going to France.
Yes, that's my in.
Yes, because I am interested in auto sports, just not to the level that my husband is in a 24-hour race.
That's intense.
It's pretty intense. And I can't geek out over the engineering on the fly. That is like the entire reason he wants to go. So talking about this and this race, about a week later, I said, let's start saving up for France. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we can afford, I don't know, $75, maybe $100 a month. We'll just quietly put it aside. And he's like, okay, all right, let's do that. And so we started saving to go to the Le Mans race, and we have not gone yet, mostly because of the children.
The children usually do that.
So we hit our dinger of what we were trying to save up towards. And the kids at this point, they are remarkably picky eaters. And we're like, we do not want to drag them around France and have them whine the entire time about the delicious food. So we're going to wait till they're a little older. They can come with us and at least be polite. That was what got us started. And so talking about those things and having these discussions and then using those discussions as a jumping off point to start making joint future decisions together. And we're making decisions about fun stuff. We're not talking about life insurance or burial plots or retirement, which granted, those are fun for me because I'm a nerd, but...
But you made them fun in your books.
Yes. But we're talking about fun things and we're finding a way hey, if we change this that we're doing, we can be able to have that we want. And that brought us together and put us on the same page for budgeting. I mean, it was not a magic, boom, we're on the same page now. I'm not going to promise that, but it started a great trend.
Yeah, but I think there's an order of operations here, right? I think anything that you're going to will into existence starts off with conversations. And by conversations, I mean either self-talk if you're planning by yourself, or talking with whoever you're planning with. In Emily's case, with her husband. But these conversations start the ball rolling, but then actually beginning it. It's like 95% of the battle. Because anytime when I was a financial planner, and somebody began a journey, they would finish it. But people would get all freaked out about finishing the journey. And I'm like, we don't have to worry about finishing it. Let's just start it. And once we started down the road, that was nearly always the hardest part, was just getting that ball rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I started with marriage and money because that's what we were dealing with. I don't think that's talked about enough. And I totally get having a plan and getting excited about it. But I see too many times one spouse is excited about this plan and they're either almost dragging the other. Yeah. If they're that successful, or versus someone who is sabotaging it because they never signed on to it. They're not enthusiastic about it. And I understand intellectually, yes, you want to pay off the debt. You want to save for retirement. You want to save for these goals. But when you can get your spouse on board, when you can get your kids on board, the momentum is incredible. It really is worth the time when you're talking about your relationship and your finances to invest in those conversations. And then you can always tweak it. You can always get better with it and finance. But if you get them excited about, hey, we're saving up for Le Mans or we're saving up for X goal, then that's a huge win. Yeah.
For our family, we didn't even attach a win condition to our game. It was just a let's not lose together game. So I would come home and Cheryl would be busy doing something, and we have twins, and my twins would be nowhere in sight. Cheryl's nowhere in sight, and every light in our house would be on. We had 3 televisions. All 3 TVs are on. Nobody's watching any of them. The door, it's like 55 degrees. The doors are open. I mean, we're just heating the neighborhood. I just really was frustrated by it. And I found that, harping on my family was not an approach that was working. Everybody just kind of rolled their eyes. So instead we took a different approach, which is we gamified it. We took out at the time, just simple graph paper. And back then, because my kids are 26 now, and they were maybe 8 at that time, the bill would come every month. And so we would, whenever we got the utility bill, the electric bill, we would plot it on this grid. And the goal was just to see how low can we go? And we would just start tracking it. Man, once my kids got excited about tracking the utility bills, my life completely changed, because if I would leave on the flipping TV for a sec, I would leave the room to go get a glass of water and I would come back and my son's turned off the TV. He's like, Dad, you got to turn off the TV. That's just sucking electricity. What are you doing? We're trying to win this thing, Dad. What are you doing? I'm like, so now my kids are complaining at me that I'm leaving too many on. But just by gamifying it, involving the whole family, made it a ton more fun, and the complaining went away. And now we were all on the same page. That's
what I loved about reading Stack, is that you came away. Yes, you had the financial tips, but it was fun. It is fun to try out and experiment. And Joe, I have been in your shoes. I had the pleasure, but it was a pleasure at the end of it. I put my oldest in charge of the zoo trip budget. She was hardcore. She's like, do we really each need to get a drink? Can we share?
Water's for everybody.
But empowering your kids, including them, making it a game, making it fun, is just a huge win all around. So I definitely recommend anyone listening and watching this, grab a copy of Stack and pre-order it now, because I saw that you guys have some bonuses. I saw a checklist for finding more Benjamins.
When I was a financial planner, I would find that we would sometimes, with a new client that came in, we'd find them lots of money. And then other clients, maybe we were busier, we would miss the same exact thing that we had gotten the time before. So maybe we'd find something in we just talked about the electric bill. Let's say in the electric bill, we'd find something. And then the next client, I'd forget to do that. So I had this sheet to make sure that with every client, we walk through the sheet to make sure. And this was every single place I knew to look for money. We decided to include that as an extra. Initially, it was in the book, but it was a little overly nerdy. It was a little overly deep. We had people tell us this would be a great pre-order bonus instead of sending the book into the abyss. And Emily, your budget sheet is one that you use.
Yeah. So that's my actual budgeting Excel sheet. So my happy place is Staples or any office supply store. And I was at one and I found a budgeting book that was broken down by 31 days. You wrote things in, and I brought that home. It was in late 2014. And my husband looked at it and he's like, you have got to be kidding me. They make Excel for this. So he does a lot with Excel in his work. He's an engineer. He's like, I will make something for you. Using the book that I found as a template, created this Excel spreadsheet that I have changed and tweaked over the years. I ended up making it rainbow order because I hold rainbow order sacred. I have literally been using that since December 2014.
I'm really excited about this. And for those listening and watching, definitely pre-order, and I want to support you making a good decision. I know to get the bonuses, they have to send you a copy of their order, but if they keep that and send a copy to me at Simplify and Enjoy, 5 people randomly, I will reimburse them and give them $25 Amazon gift cards so they can have some fun and enjoy, maybe go on a money date and talk about Le Mans or whatever it is to motivate them for this new year 2022. So thank you guys so much. Where can they get more information about Stacked and whatever else you guys are up to? Because you guys are the busiest people in personal finance.
I'm just trying to keep up with her. You can get more about the book, stackybenjamins.com/stacked. is a great place. That gives you all the places to pre-order. By the way, I never pre-ordered anything. And thank you so much, A, for having us, and B, for doing that. That's awesome. But I'll tell you, I never pre-ordered anything until I became a creator. And I realized that pre-orders are the way. If our goal really is to make fewer people cry about money, that bringing more people along for the ride is fantastic. And some of that's got to be discoverability. The way to get discovered is to have any of these projects, ours, if it's yours, if it's anybody's, reach some of these lists that are out there, right? The Amazon list, the Wall Street Journal, or God forbid, the New York Times. And I never knew this, but those are all based on pre-orders. So if you don't pre-order our book, Emily and I'll be fine. But I'll tell you that ever since I became a creator, I've now started pre-ordering stuff where I really, really like the thing, so that not just for the bonuses, but also because I'm interested in financial literacy. So, but StackyBenjamins.com/stack. We have a link there to Bookshop, which works with independent booksellers. You know, if you've got a local bookseller, that's awesome. And by the way, if you don't have any money and you need the first couple chapters of this book, which are about getting out of debt and getting your credit in order, go request it from your library. I know we've had a few backers do that. And I know
we love libraries.
Yes.
San Diego Public Library System, I just found out, is just ordered 6 so that people in San Diego can get it whenever they want. Yeah.
That cool. I mean, that's fantastic. That's how I started learning about personal finance when we first got married, was the library. And no shame, I was like, 10 books. Now, did I read all 10 books at first? No, but I quickly found out which books I liked, which ones I was like, I'll put it back. But it's a great way to explore books.
Yeah. And especially, you know, if this is the type of book that you're going to dog ear, read it first and then buy your copy later and then dog ear the heck out of it, like I did the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
If you'd like to visit me, you can find me at emilyguyberken.com, and then also emilyguyberken.com/stacked is another place where you can find out more about the book, places to pre-order, see where we're going to be on tour. Because, well, I say we, I'm only there for like a third of it, but Joe is doing a 42 city tour because busiest person.
Because he's Joe, Emily. Yeah, I'm excited about you coming in Raleigh, January 22nd. I'll be there, and I'm going to get some friends together. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I will have all the links in the show notes.
This segment is brought to you by Coastal Credit Union. If you want to live better, you got to bank better. Find out how at bankbetter.org. Before we wrap up, I want to focus on a few key takeaways I got from my chat with Emily and Joe. The first one is find the joy behind the numbers. I think it's great that you're saving more in your emergency fund, or you're investing for retirement, or you're paying down or off your debt. But you have to remember, to stay motivated, you have to have a why. What is the benefit of you hitting that goal? If you're paying off credit cards and you knock all of them out, with that money that you're saving, what do you plan to do? Are you going to upgrade something around the house, travel, tech? What is it? Defining your why, finding that joy behind the goal can keep you motivated, because if you're dealing with a large goal, it's going to take some time. The second one is truly make it a family goal. As Joe mentioned, you can throw in pizzas, competitions, but including the kids with your goals can be a great benefit. Not only are you doing things together as a family and having that momentum, you're teaching them finances in a way that's more accessible and a lot more fun. Finally, if you haven't already, make sure you're having those money dates. Yes, you're going to be reviewing the numbers, but really it's about checking in with each other, having those conversations, making sure that you're in sync with one another on your goals. And if something's not working, catching it when it's a small thing instead of letting it snowball into a bigger deal. I want your conversations around money to be fun. I want it to be low stress and low key so that you can focus on the bigger picture. If you'd like to discuss your family and financial goals for this next year and beyond, please join us in our free and private Facebook group, Thriving Families. We bounce off ideas with one another. We share some of our favorite tips and resources, and we're there to encourage each other through the tough times. So if you want to join us, and we would love to have you there, just go to simplifyandenjoy.com/FB. Special thanks to Emily and Joe for being a part of this episode. As always, I'm going to include links to the resources we mentioned, including, of course, the book Stacked, How You Can Pick It Up, Joe's podcast, Stacking Benjamin, and links to all of Emily's other books as well. Also in the show notes, I'll include a link so that you can submit your receipt for your pre-order of Stacked and be entered to win the reimbursement and an Amazon gift card. You can find all of this at simplifyandenjoy.com/stacked. I'm really thrilled about the new episodes that are going to be coming out next year. We're not only going to be discussing family finances, but we're going to be talking about being a frugal foodie, fun hobbies, travel, and more. I really appreciate your support. If you have a question or topic you want covered on the podcast, reach out to me and let me know. I hope you have a wonderful week and rest of the year. Take care.